So on to another topic that I'm sure we will have no disagreement on. Right now, we turn to the historic agreement between the United States and Iran and other world powers. Under the deal, Iran will scale back its nuclear program in exchange for lifting sanctions, while President Obama says the agreement will lead to a safer world. Some lawmakers remain skeptical, including members of Michigan's congressional delegation. Congress will have 60 days to review this agreement before voting on it. And it was interesting reading all the reaction from our delegation. It was very tepid. I mean, even on the Democrat side, saying, well, we are going to do our due diligence in reading every line of this to make sure that we make the most thoughtful decision possible. Nolan, I'm going to let you have first crack at this.
Well, I mean, President Obama went into these negotiations with several very specific outcomes he wanted to achieve. He walked away from the bargaining table last week having achieved almost none of them. And the ones he did achieve were very watered down. He started out saying we want to disarm Iran's nuclear capability. That capability is fully intact. In fact, if Iran does nothing less than comply fully with this agreement, in 13 to 15 years, it's a nuclear threshold state. So it doesn't have to break the agreement to become a nuclear power. It just has to follow it. He said we're going to have anywhere, anytime inspections. Far short of that. It's a 24-hour delay at least, and it could be many months before inspections can be carried out. There's a reason the Iranians are celebrating, the Syrians are celebrating, the Russians are celebrating. This is a very, very bad deal. And one of the worst parts hasn't been talked about much, but in the last minute, Iran threw on the table, oh, by the way, we want a lifting of the arms embargo. And we signed off on that, too. There wasn't a single concession Iran asked for that we didn't grant. We wanted this deal too bad.
All right, so do you agree with Nolan that when you hear that Iran and Russia and the Syrians are celebrating, that we should be wary?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the equation, obviously, is that they had things that they wanted. One of the things that Iran wanted, I think the most important, is legitimacy. And Iran doesn't want to be treated like some sort of third world, second class state. It wants to negotiate with the West and the U.S. and Western Europe on the same kind of level playing field that other countries do. And I think they do get that out of this. It's not the strongest agreement that we could have gotten. I think the question, though, becomes, what do you think the alternative could have been? There was no movement on those issues. The idea that Iran will be a nuclear threshold state in 15 years, I think, is better than the prospect of a nuclear Iran with a bomb within that 15-year window. There's no question that that's to our advantage. I mean, I think there was lots of room for improvement. There's no question, as you pointed out, there were specific things the president said he wanted out of this, and he doesn't get all the way there on any of them. But I think this was a question of, can we get anything done to push this off the brink where it has been, where there's this threat of some sort of military involvement either on Israel's part or from the Iranians.
All right, so if Congress does not go for this, where does this leave us?
Well, that's really unclear of how much power Congress actually has to stop this. And I think there's some question whether Congress will go for it or not. But you mentioned that, you know, Iran sought legitimacy, and yeah. I think that's the most dangerous thing this agreement did. It not only gave it legitimacy, it pretty much established it as the power in the region. This is a rogue state that funds terrorism, still holding our hostages. We walked away, gave Iran an agreement that's going to provide it $150 billion in sanctions relief probably by the end of the year, and we couldn't even get 4 American hostages released in exchange. It's going to trigger an arms war in the Middle East. The Saudis have already said what Iran gets, we want, and you know that Turkey's not going to sit there and say, you know, not us too.
Some degree,
so in 15 years, and that's no time, particularly in the Middle East, in 15 years, you're going to have a lot of nuke-toting rogue states or dangerous states in that region. We've made the world a much more dangerous state. But I will agree with one thing. It was the best deal this president could get, because I don't think the Iranians took him seriously from the beginning. They looked at his history of ignoring and erasing red lines, of backing down from his threats and his statements, and they had his number.
But last word on this,
Stephen. The threat of nuclear Iran predates this president, and George Bush got nothing. So we are in a better space today than we were when he left office, and I think that's the point. The other point here is that this is a move to try to sort of diplomatically change the state of Iran from within. Releasing the sanctions. I mean, you've got a very middle-class aspiring young generation of Iranians who want something really different from what they have. This gives them the opportunity to get that and change the regime that's in charge so that in 15 years, maybe it's not a state that is even aspiring to nuclear power.
4 years ago, when those young folks were out in the streets, we should have supported regime change
Probably.
at that time.
All right.